Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I really want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So we have topics like money, business, health, and inspiration, and sometimes the metaphysical. So for those that are listening live, this is the first show of 2021, and what a year 2020 was. But we do have a amazing lineup of topics and guests for you in this new year. We're going to be talking about things to keep you inspired and healthy and wealthy, things like monetizing your message, living your best life, and overcoming limiting beliefs, even ageless living and more. So you can come learn more about our programs by visiting joinsmartwomen.com. I've got a short URL. So if you go to joinsmartwomen.com, you can learn all about the different benefits, and you'll know who our guests are coming up, like our fabulous guest today. Today I'm with food freedom coach Beth Basham, and she is going to be talking to us about this idea of intuitive eating and mindfulness and, getting off yo-yo diets. We're going to talk about ditching keto and intermittent fasting and other diets that are just, great ways to reprogram your mind and your relationship with food. And it's just so important. So we're going to also talk about how eating, get this, without restriction helps your body freedom, helps you feel more freedom, and also how to live your best life. We're also going to talk about how to get to the root of your relationship with food. And it doesn't really require a lot of time. And you're going to find today, she's going to share some tips to actually help you save time. So Beth Basham is a food freedom coach, a registered dietitian with over 15 years of experience in helping women achieve long-lasting success with their health and their peace of mind. And of course, to have peace with their bodies, because we know how we all feel about our bodies. It seems like no one's happy with their hair or their bodies nowadays. So Beth, welcome. Thanks for being so patient. I'm so glad you're here.
It is my sincere pleasure to be here today. I am very passionate about this subject, so I was thrilled when you invited me on the show. I have a lot to share.
Yes. And it's wonderful how connections work, because I was introduced to you by Dr. Bree Gordon, and she's going to be on the show later this year. And it's all about these connections. You're also going to be part of our Smart Women Empower Women movement that's launching this month as well. So we're excited. So everyone who wants to get all the benefits, come to joinsmartwomen.com and just sign up and you'll get on our list. So, Beth, we always love getting to know our guests a little bit more by having them share their stories. And I'm just curious, how in the world did you become a food freedom coach? Was there something that happened in your life? Because you also are a registered dietitian.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. And I think it's an important aspect of the work I do, because I think all of us have a mission, and our mission is usually stems from some personal experience we have. And mine is no different, and my answer to your question here is really twofold. Part of the reason I do the work I do and have become a transformational food freedom coach is because of my professional life and being a dietitian for so many years, seeing what works, what doesn't work with private clients. But kind of connected to that was my own personal journey. And early in my career as a dietitian, I came out of my undergrad and my internship to become a registered dietitian, thinking I had all the tools to actually keep myself healthy and thin and whatever this ideal body was in society today. Yeah. I knew everything about what to eat. I knew I could look at a plate of food and count the calories, tell you the protein, fat, and I thought that was the key to my health and happiness right there. I was also a dancer growing up, so I had a lot of time in front of a mirror and constantly looked at my body and said things to myself that I would never have said to my best friend, right? We just are so much
Right.
more critical of our own selves than we are of others. And so for that reason, I went into the world of dietetics, thought I had all the tools, but what started to happen was I started to change. My body started to change as I became a woman, and I didn't dance as much anymore. I started to put on some weight, and I started to become extremely restrictive with my diet. So I was counting calories. I was, watching all of the different things. I was exercising obsessively. And instead of seeing these results, like seeing what should happen in accordance to what I'd learned in school, my body started pushing back against me, and I started gaining more weight. Every time I got in the scale, the more I restricted, the more I gained. The more I exercised, the worse I felt. I had fatigue, my hair was thinning. I mean, what people might, call now, it's a flashy word on the internet, it's called adrenal fatigue. That's actually not what it is, but that was more or less the symptoms I was experiencing. And I, all along this journey, hated my body. And here I was about 4 or 5 years into my career as a dietitian, trying to help other people be healthy. And I didn't have what it took to keep myself healthy, and that was something that made me feel like a fraud in many ways.
Wow.
And so through the searching and I did every diet out there, Katana. I mean, you name it, I tried it or at least dabbled in it. And what I
Can
learned,
you name
I
just a couple of them?
Oh, sure. I did something, and people might not know what this is, but I did something called metabolic typing. I did low carb versions. They weren't called keto back then, but lower carb type of restriction. I did like the calorie counting apps. I also did HCG. I know you mentioned that you have tried that one. Without going on and on, I mean, there was a lot of different things that I dabbled in. I took courses. I mean, I spent not just the physical pain, but there was a lot of emotion and time spent trying to understand this. And it wasn't until I was introduced to the concept of intuitive eating and really integrated mindfulness. So during this time, I also became a yoga instructor. I've always been interested in the metaphysical,
Yeah.
what the drivers behind, like the deeper underneath of our function as humans. And so I started to just put together that these diet plans weren't working. I couldn't do it anymore. So what happened was, I stumbled upon new information about how to actually reprogram our relationship. So what wasn't my problem wasn't the weight that I was putting on my body or taking off my body. It was this relationship I had with food that was really destructive to my mental and emotional well-being. And that started things off. This was about 10 years ago. And since then, I have just been quenching for knowledge about how to help women reclaim their relationship with food and body that's positive, uplifting. And quite frankly, it's very little has to do with the weight that we keep on our bodies, and very much about the relationship that we have with our bodies, the relationship we have with our plate. So that's what kind of got this party
Mm.
started. I've since spent a lot of time with specifically women, coaching and training them how to reprogram that relationship with food and body so that they can experience long lasting results. So I hope, please ask questions, or I hope that
Oh no,
was
that's the
answering
story
what
is
you're going
amazing,
for.
because I think it's very common that a lot of women have gone through this.
Oh,
I mean, I had a friend in high school that thought she was big boned. I mean, she really was big boned and kind of like a tomboy. And then I remember we were at boarding school and she got anorexia and she just turned into the skeleton and her period stopped and her hair fell out, just like you were saying. And she had to go to the hospital. And, you know, why is it we do this to ourselves? Because I know, I'm getting goosebumps and feeling like I want to cry when I think about that, because no one knew how to help her.
oh my gosh. And I hear the same story from women all over the place. It's rare that you come across a woman who hasn't been affected by this diet culture, and that's what it is. And there's a lot of great books you can read about the origins of diet culture that stem back 100, 200 years, but the reality is that all of us are subjected to these unrealistic ideals of what a healthy body is. And some
Mm.
of that comes from our medical community. And I'm not, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus when I say what I'm about to say, but there is so much emphasis on weight loss as a key component of treatment plans within the medical community. How many women have gone to the doctor and the doctor says, just lose weight and X, Y, and Z will be solved. So women go to extreme lengths, men too. This isn't just exclusive for women. I've talked to men with body dysmorphia, and it's probably much more prevalent than you'd think. But women specifically, they push and force and restrict and do all these extreme things to fix themselves in the name of weight, because the doctor told them, the dietitian told them, whomever it was. And when we do that, we put ourselves in a place where we actually do a disservice to our body. We stop listening to the internal cues that we were innately born with, Katana, the stuff that my daughter, my young little daughter, has as part of her. I see it, as she was nursing, when she was an infant, all the way until now, and she's eating in this intuitive way. She knows she can self-regulate. Some meals she eats more, some meals she eats less. But when we're in a diet mentality, what happens is we override those internal cues with all this logic and all this should and shouldn't, this good food, bad food lists, instead of listening to our bodies and tuning into what we truly actually need, which may or may not be in connection with the diet plan that we're currently on. So do you have any questions about that?
Yeah,
Am I making
well, I do have a
sense?
question when you're talking about the intuitive thing. I just took a test, Ayurveda test, and found out I'm Vata,
Okay.
50% Vata. Did I pronounce it right?
Vata, yeah, I mean,
Vata.
I'm sure there's different ways, tomato, right?
Yes, yes. And so and then my husband, he's opposite, he's Kapha, right?
Okay.
And so, I notice how he exercises and how he eats is totally different. When I took the test, and then I read about this, then it helped a lot. But are these kind of things going to be helpful for us? Because when I did read that, it made me feel very, kind towards myself, because then I understood, that I'm cold all the time and I am a certain way. And then it told me the types of foods, and I understood why I like certain foods as well. So what do you think of those kind of programs? Because that's not really a diet per se, but are there any things like that we should be looking for to help us out? Because it's very difficult to try to sort through all the different diets.
That is absolutely true. I will remark and say, yes, you're right. It is very difficult. Even as a nutritionist myself, there's all kinds of information coming in from left and right fields, and you question yourself, and how much do I actually know about nutrition when there's all this information coming in? So how is it that someone without a nutrition degree can sift and sort through this, right? It's very overwhelming.
Mhm.
Now your question about Ayurvedic medicine. Now
Yeah.
I would argue that a lot of the Eastern philosophies have had a handle on the fact that we all thrive on something different when it comes to food and nutrition. What I will add to that is that we not only thrive on something different from person to person, but also from moment to moment, in different life stages. So what you thrived on as a young child is going to look very different than what you thrive on in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. That changes. And even things like the diet, and they still are diet plans that come from the Ayurvedic space. I mean, likely they're also attached to mindfulness practices and other things that help you sift and sort from your own internal wisdom. However, they can be, depending on where they come from, restrictive in nature. So it's important that even under that level of Ayurvedic medicine, which I'm not putting down in any way, I find it extremely fascinating. But I also recognize there is still a little bit of that good food, bad food thing going on, even in those different spaces, even if it's something that's coming from Eastern medicine or philosophy. But what you're getting at here is that there is differences between all of us. And one person, like if your neighbor comes to you and is like, I have just lost 30 pounds on keto, you might think to yourself, if she could do it, then I can thrive on keto too. But what you find is when you go into that keto lifestyle change, you don't feel great. Maybe you're losing weight, but you feel like terrible, and your health actually deteriorates instead of elevates. So it's important to recognize that when people or marketers or whomever put together a diet plan, it's usually a one size fits all. And that is just not who we are as humans. We have a different need, not only from person to person, but from moment to moment within our lifetime. So intuitive eating is a practice that helps you reconnect with that internal wisdom and literally from moment to moment tune into what you need through
Wow.
gentle
Well, can you give
nutrition
us an
guidance.
example? Because it sounds too good to be
Yeah.
true. Because
Oh, I know, right?
oh, I'm just dying for some chocolate, and so I'm just supposed to go get some, right?
Well, and that actually is a practice within intuitive eating is and I don't want to make this too simplistic because it does have different facets to it, and there's different personalities that come to the table, if you will, when it comes to things like eating chocolate or sugary things. But the idea is that we instead of eating food from a place of good or bad or from judgment, oftentimes we look at a bar of chocolate as you offered here in this example, and we have judgment about that chocolate, right? It's good or it's bad. And there's reasons that we come up with those judgments because somebody told us this or that. And so when we go into the experience of eating the chocolate, our thoughts, our emotions, and our beliefs are actually having a physical effect on our body. And this is where that mindfulness piece comes in. And this is what I get so excited about, because the thinking about the chocolate, if we believe or think that this chocolate is going to negatively impact our health, it becomes on some level a self-fulfilling prophecy in our body, does it not? So the chronic dieter who's been told that you can't ever eat sugar if you want to be healthy is going to eat that sugar because she's driven to for whatever biological reason. And she's going to feel guilty and in judgment of herself for doing it. And that has a profound impact on everything from her digestion to the metabolism of the chocolate itself. So
Does the
we're
emotion of guilt or anxiety cause like some kind of bad hormones, like, adrenaline or something too? I mean, could it be that? Is that
absolutely.
occurring at the same time?
Yes, and
Okay.
yeah. If you want to get more into the science, we have our
Well, that's what I'm
autonomic
wondering.
nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know where your listeners are coming from a science standpoint, but we have something in us called an autonomic nervous system that's separated into two sides, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Both are very important for survival and living a genuinely beautiful life. But when the sympathetic side, which is also called the fight or flight response side of our nervous system, is chronically elevated and turned on, which can be a result of thoughts and beliefs, negative thoughts and beliefs around food, that's chronically turned on, we're going to see increases in hormones such as cortisol and insulin that are more pro-inflammatory, that actually elevate blood sugar, that can lead to weight gain long term. Now, if
Mm,
you have, so I don't want to just simplify and say, if you have one bad thought about
yeah.
chocolate while you're eating it, you're going to gain 5 pounds. That's not how this works. This is a lifetime of thinking and being immersed in diet culture that places this chronic stress on the woman and her mind and her thoughts and her beliefs, chronically thinking that these foods are good, these foods are bad, right? And that chronic stress is what leads to those gentle yet very profound influences on our hormonal systems, right? As women, we're pretty complicated, right? We have not
Mhm.
only daily rhythms, we have monthly rhythms. Okay,
Right.
whether or not you're menstruating, you still have something called an infradian cycle. And diet culture kind of trains us out from listening to those ebbs and those flows of those cycles and rhythms. So here's I guess my take home point is when you're eating a bar of chocolate, you're going to have judgment come back and judgment come through.
Mhm.
And so one thing we can do in this moment and this time is to see those judgments and dismiss them and allow this practice of neutrality to come into our relationship with food, just as an example. Does that make sense
So
to
we
you,
could say that,
Katana?
thank you for sharing, right? We say that to our intuition, right? Thank you for sharing. Or that's more going to be from fear.
Yes.
That's our ego coming in,
Yeah.
right? Saying, you're bad, you're going to get fat, right? Thank you for sharing, but I know that's not true. And then you go on with the true belief. And so how does someone start to shift those beliefs about food?
Absolutely.
Because that's, or shift beliefs about their body. I know you talk about falling in love with who you are, right?
Mm.
Your own body,
Hmm.
and stop judging yourself and being so critical and start looking for the good points. What are some of the things we can do to change our beliefs about our food and our body?
Yeah, that's a great question. And likely we'll only touch the tip of the iceberg today, but I think you bring up a really good point. And this is something that I think is really important for a woman to understand, that this is not necessarily the easy journey. The shifting of thoughts and beliefs and emotions, almost that subconscious programming that was kind of instilled in us in the earlier years of our life, is difficult to change. So the first thing I believe is so important for all women to do is to reject the diet culture first. So just to say, you know what, this diet culture doesn't work for me anymore. I am ready to open myself to a new path, to a new way and a new perspective. That's really important for anybody to just stay open-minded to the fact that there might actually be a better way or a different way that could really support their health journey. The second thing I'd recommend is practicing self-compassion. So as these negative thoughts come up, it can feel and it can take time for you to completely dismiss or release the more depleting emotions that we have around food or body. I've worked for women for months at a time, and they're making so much progress and success, but they come back and they say, Beth, I had this thought kind of leak in, this judgment come up for me when I looked in the mirror yesterday, and I want to normalize that.
Mhm.
I've been on this journey for 10 years and I still have fleeting moments where I look in the mirror and I'm like, that doesn't look the way it used to. As I get older, as my body changes and shifts, as it inevitably will, I go through this over and over. This is a practice, for all of us on this planet. It's always a practice. And self-compassion and just being witness to ourselves in those moments where we're feeling maybe a little less than, it's
Mhm.
okay, and just to practice that self-compassion in those moments and recognize that this is a journey. This is a journey, and to join other women in community who are on the same journey. I don't know about you, Katana, but I have always thrived in the presence of other women who are embarking on a journey similar to mine. And so when somebody's interested in diving into mindfulness or intuitive eating, having a community to connect with can be critical, because diet culture inevitably will make its way back to your front of mind through social media, through your friend who's doing the keto and lost 30 pounds, and here you are in an intuitive eating journey. It can be very, very sexy to go back to dieting. And it's important to have a community that you can lean on for support during those tough moments when you're feeling that pull. Yeah, do those ideas help a little bit?
So how does having a community, and like how does, let's talk a little bit about your program, because do you do group, do you do individual, how does that work? Because I truly believe in having a community. That's why I started Smart Women's empowerment program, because we are a community. And
Yeah.
I'm actually taking Marcy Shimoff's Year of Miracles this year. And that's a year-long program just to keep you inspired. And part of it, one of the sessions will be about vibrant health and, happiness and, raising your vibration and money. So all these things are so important. So I do like the idea of being in a community, but do you have, are your people all on individual programs, or are they so what is your philosophy with that? I'm just curious.
No, that's a great question. Everyone comes with a different set of needs.
Hmm.
One I think we can agree on is just having community of support. So what I've created in how I work with clients or patients or however you want to call them is I have different levels of support. So I have just a free Facebook community support, mindful and intuitive eating for women. It's pretty easy just to type into the search bar. Free community just to access some information, some goodies around how to do this, and be in a support space online with women who are also embarking on this journey. So that's just an opportunity to learn and start to immerse yourself into whether or not this type of engagement with food and body is right for you. And then when I work more intimately with clients, I do a hybrid program. So I have a program where I intimately work with a woman for up to 6 months on the process of becoming a mindful and intuitive eater. And it includes group, community, Facebook community, and individual support. So I really try to create this very safe and supportive container for the women who choose to, take the next step and really immerse themselves in the work. So, so the answer to your question is it's a hybrid, because I think we need both. It's good to have just that one-on-one intimacy with the professional that you're working with, but it's also, and this is something I learned a few years ago. I started a PCOS support group at a local doctor's office, and I didn't know how it would work. I was like, oh, they all have their own health issues and they're coming from different angles. But when they got in the room together, and you see this with your community too, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I've been there too. Yeah, that's hard. Like, how can we get through this? And you just, what happens is a person feels less alone, they feel less alone, and they can take steps forward and be rooted and cheered on by their peers, which I think is almost more important than the cheering that I do as a health professional. Like, sure, I've been there. I was immersed in diet culture for most of my life, and I've gotten out, but just to have someone going through the journey with you is huge. So I
For the
find,
downs and the ups. So when they're really
yes,
struggling, right? Like, I just
absolutely.
blew it last night type of thing, or
Yeah.
when they really want to celebrate, because, sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard to do that because you don't want to go to friends. First of all, they're going to lecture you, right? Or may not
Mhm.
understand why you're doing or what you're doing. And then you have to justify what you're doing. And
Then you
so,
question it.
yes, yes. I mean, so that's great to have that kind of support for people. So is the group program more for the learning, and then the one-on-one is more for tweaking and more, what can I say, customized stuff that someone might need?
Yeah, and every client that goes through it gets a hybrid. So they get time with me directly, and also time in the group. It kind of comes as a it comes in one container in one shell. So they get both. Everyone gets both.
So,
And
I wanted
yeah.
to ask you this: reprogramming our thoughts and attitudes and beliefs. I mean, this is something you actually teach, is how to reprogram the mind. Because, I last fall, I interviewed Barbara Stanny about she has a new book called Rewire for Wealth, in reprogramming the brain for wealth. And so it
Yes.
seems like you're talking about reprogramming our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs as well for food. How do you help someone reprogram? Because I mean, where did this come from? I know, I don't want to expose anyone, but I know of a little girl who, when she was little, the way her grandmother showed love is she let her watch TV and eat on the bed, every day after school. And that's, to her, that means love, let's say, you know,
Mhm.
and that could be carried into the future, and just in case that person's listening, I don't want them to feel bad. But I know all of us have these beliefs that were formed when we were little.
Yes. And that has, you talk about wealth, like rewiring your brain for wealth. This is similar in that we're rewiring our brain for a healthy relationship with food and body, because that diet culture for so many women starts at a very, very young age. I mean, some research now says that there are girls as young as age 5 and 6 who are going on a diet. And that is scary. Katana, that scares me to no end. I have a daughter and I just want to prevent that in any way I can for her. So what you're bringing light to is this idea that even if we have all these positive affirmations and we're like, I can do this, da 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 da, rah rah rah, if we don't get to the root of the issue, which happens in the subconscious brain, or the identity of ourselves at that deeper level, even the most excited person coming into a program on mindful and intuitive eating may find it's just like another diet program. It doesn't stick because they still see themselves as a woman who can't get healthy or can't, it can't work for a number of reasons tied back to that subconscious programming from earlier on in her life. So we have to look at identity and what is our identity around food and body, and how can we start to shift that through language, through how we talk to ourselves, through meditation. I use a lot of my training as a yoga teacher. I also have a background in functional medicine, and there's a lot of holistic elements to that are so important that we integrate as we become a more mindful, intuitive eater. So we actually shift our entire identity around food or body, and who we are in relationship to food. Does that clear the confusion and answer your question, or should I expand?
And it seems like when we can this idea of reprogramming, the neuroplasticity of the brain, I guess we really truly can reprogram, can't we?
Absolutely.
Like if we totally relate food to love, right? We could reprogram that once we understand it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And every woman comes with a different set of programming. So we have to untangle that, see it for what it is, with, through the lens of love and compassion, removing judgment. I have something in my program called the curiosity cure. So instead of approaching something as we must figure it out, it's more, how can we stay curious and open-minded to what's underneath and explore that and be really honest with ourselves? Because when we can and we expose that subconscious belief, it's at that time we can start to kind of pull it apart. I even work with a hypnotherapist in my program. She works with some of my women to help climb into the subconscious a little deeper, to help them reveal those deeper layers if we're not able to do it just with the programming or the exercises and the things that I offer in the program.
Well,
so
because think of that, if you have like bad feelings and that type of thing inside of you, or memories, food can just relieve that. It's like such a fast boost, right? You eat something sugary and then whoosh, oh, I feel better now, but not for long.
Yeah. And we need to forgive
Temporary.
ourselves. Yeah. And that's, like an indicator of emotional eating. And I want to remind the women listening, if you've ever connected to that idea, oh, I'm an emotional eater, this is a perfect opportunity to be compassionate for yourself, because for so many of us, if we didn't have food to soothe in that moment, we could have very well embarked on much more harmful vices, right? So food as a coping mechanism, although, we like to shift that and change that going forward, it's kind of a nice thing to say, gosh, thank you for being there, bowl of ice cream, because in that moment, I could have done a lot of other things that were self-destructive, alcohol, drugs, I don't know, you name it. There's lots of things out there that are much worse.
Right.
But,
right.
So sorry, that was a bit of a side tangent.
No, it's fine. It's true, because I think people are
to
relating to you. Well, we're at the top of the hour, and I want women to know how to connect with you. Especially, you do have a course, they can join your Facebook. Why don't you talk? But join your Facebook group, and you have your program that you're offering. Why don't you share that real quick, and your website?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So my Facebook group, if you're just getting started, this piques your interest, is Mindful and Intuitive Eating for Women. Just type it into the search bar and you'll find us. It's a free group. I also am offering, in conjunction with our chat today, a free mini course called the Metabolism and Relaxation Solution. So I believe there'll be some links provided for you to sign up for that free course, just to get your toe dipped into how can we shift metabolism with our thoughts and beliefs. And it goes into more about that parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system that we dabbled in today. So it really opens the door to that experience. And then, of course, if you're someone who's maybe dabbled in this, you're listening now because you've been exposed to mindful and intuitive eating, but you're challenged with how to make it work for you. I do offer free strategy calls to just explore if this type of work is right for you, and if a more extensive dive into the work I do is appropriate. It's a no obligation call, just an opportunity to chat and see if we're a good fit. But again, lots of free resources. That free mini course, the free Facebook group are a great way for those of you just interested in the idea of this all and want to learn more.
And the website again?
For my website is www.healthybydesignrd.com.
Okay, say it again, healthybydesignrc.com?
RD as in registered dietitian. So
Registered dietitian. Okay, great.
yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Katana, I cannot tell you how much fun this was, and I appreciate your time and your energy as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, and it's the best show to start out the first of the year with, because everyone has this question. Okay, thank you so much. So for everyone, thank you so much for being here today. Christy Whitman, who is a New York Times bestselling author, is coming on our show, on our next show, when we're talking about how to create a perfect life for 2021. And we hope you'll join us. And until next time, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.